This is episode 43 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and my guest today is a huge Oilers fan from Germany and a virtual citizen of Edmonton, Axel Shaefer. Axel, welcome to the show.
Hi, Eric. Thanks a lot for having me. How are you these days?
Yeah, you're welcome for sure. I'm great, thanks. I've been looking forward to having you on the podcast to talk some Oilers hockey here, and it's an exciting time of year, so it's a perfect time to record an episode. But, I know from following you on Twitter, you're not just a hockey fan, you're a big sports fan in general. And I saw you were in Florida last month for the Players' Championship, and you even posted a picture of yourself on the 17th hole at Sawgrass wearing an Oilers hat, which I thought was pretty cool. Was that your first PGA event that you've attended? And which golfers were you most excited to watch?
Yeah, it was actually my first PGA event. It was kind of my bucket list for a long time. And some guys from our local golf club, they hit me up and they say, okay, we are going over to Florida to watch the Players. And after all the pandemic and not traveling for 2 years, I think was a great opportunity. And for the golf, it was really great, but we had really bad weather. So there were a lot of breaks. It was really cold, not very Florida-like. And we were cheering on some of the European guys. So, for example, we followed Ian Poulter for 18 holes because he had done great in the past on Ryder Cups. So we wanted to give him some support. But all the big guys, Pga, DJ, and all the players from the top 10. It was just great to be so close to them and see them playing, and they hit the ball so long, so precise, and even if they get into trouble, they always find a way out. So it was great also for my own golf game, even it's not, of course, in that standard, to take some learnings away. So it was great experience.
Yeah, I think the difference between a professional golfer and the average one would be a pretty huge difference. I mean, not even just like you said, the ability to drive the ball 300 yards, but the recovery shots, even if they ever do put themselves in a bad spot, which doesn't happen very often, they're able to, get the ball back in a good spot very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really impressive, and also we saw a hole in one from Shane Lowry.
Oh, nice.
The other day. Yeah, it was really amazing on 17th. I mean, it's not the 16th on the Phoenix Open. So nobody was actually throwing beer cans. So it was not that rowdy, but we enjoyed ourselves. Everyone was having a good time. It was just good, to finally get back in some sports event after the pandemic, or let's say at the end of the pandemic, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to travel again soon too, and obviously, if you're going to Florida, you want to have some really nice weather. So it's unfortunate you didn't get to enjoy the sun. You got some rain in the Sunshine State. But I'm glad you mentioned Dustin Johnson as well. He's one of my favorite golfers, and of course, there's the connection to Wayne Gretzky being his son-in-law. He actually had some Gretzky Oilers golf shoes that he posted a picture of. I don't know if you saw that I think he put it on his social medias as well. So I thought that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I was trying to get hold of them. Well, it's really almost impossible to get those in America. It was really, I wasn't able to get them. I was trying now in Europe, but then my wife asking me, okay, you want to spend like 250 Canadian dollars on golf shoe, which you will never wear. So
it's Adidas that makes his shoes, I think.
Yeah, but
they look nice
Adidas,
though.
Yeah, they really look nice, and I mean, the marketing guys know their jobs. So But I like the connection of course, the guys who I was traveling with, they're making fun of me. Yeah, you need to go to Paulina Gretzky and say hello. You're a big Oilers fan, things like that. So we of course saw her following
Oh,
DJ.
nice.
So that was kind of fun. But overall great experience. But I was even more happy that the Oilers at that time found their groove, and they beat Tampa during the trip. So that was also nice. So all in all,
Were you
it
at
was
the
good.
game?
No, the game was in Edmonton.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
The game against Tampa that was in Tampa was in February, I believe, and then of course it would have been a Saturday night game where they beat the Lightning.
Yeah,
that was where McDavid had that beautiful rush goal down the wing where he beat Victor Hedman wide.
Yeah, that was impressive, and
I
think it shows what the team can actually do, even against let's say supposed big teams. So I like the way they took on them, and it also gives me some confidence for tonight against the Avalanche.
Absolutely. I mean, they've shown that all year that they raise their game against the top teams in the league. And that's really encouraging to see that when they play the Florida Panthers, that they beat them most recently. I mean, even though they lost 2-1 to the Carolina Hurricanes, it was a hard-fought game right to the end. Like, they played the Avs a couple weeks ago, lost in overtime. I mean, they can play with anyone. It's just a matter of not playing down to your opposition either. And sometimes they've lost games to teams like Chicago or Ottawa this year. But I really think that when this team is firing on all cylinders, they can handle anybody. But now let's transition over before we talk any more about the current state of the team. I want to find out a little bit about your hockey background. So let's just start right at the beginning. How did you become an Oilers fan living in Germany?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always tell people that the town I was born in, at least it has 260,000 people in there, but we don't have a hockey rink. So so I started off with field hockey, and traveling to an ice rink would have taken like 45 minutes to up to 1 hour. Probably in Canada, it's more common to drive kid there. But if you live across the field hockey field, then your parents say, "No, we won't take you to the ice rink."
Right.
But I fell in love by just watching some German ice hockey games, or what we call it in Germany, so German hockey games. So I followed one team. And that was 1984, 1985. And then I bought a hockey yearbook. And then I saw some pictures of Wayne Gretzky lifting the Stanley Cup when they then finally beat the Islanders and ended that dynasty. So I immediately fell in love because of the team colors, because of Wayne Gretzky, of course, of the success. And then I followed the club results just by looking at newspapers, because at that time there were no TV broadcasting in Germany. So I had to go to the library to see an international newspaper. So I checked the results twice a week during the season. Then I did my calculations on the ranking, and by that time, I mean, it was 21 teams in the NHL, right? So it was not a question if the Oilers would make the playoff like today.
Yeah.
So I would check the results and then read some reports. But it was kind of hard to follow it and being so close. It got better than in the late 80s, early 90s. And so I followed along. And of course, I was really frightened back in 1998, I think, when Pocklington was almost signing a deal to sell the team, and that would have meant a relocation, I guess, to Houston. That was really frightening, and that also then intensify my fanhood. And then the 2006 run, and then I was really bought in. That was amazing run, It was so much fun. And then we just skipped the decade of darkness, and and nowadays it's so easy to follow the team. Yeah, so you have all the media reporting on the Oilers, and of course because of Draisaitl, also the German coverage got a lot of better, and now it's really easy to stay connected with the Oilers. So I can really cherish it because it was very different in the 1980s. So just to get results, right? So
that shows a lot of dedication by you too, because this was, like you said, a time when the games weren't being shown on television in Germany, and it was pre-internet. So you had to rely on going to a newspaper to get an international, update on how the Oilers were doing overseas. That's a really cool way that you had to, find out how your team was doing, and you had to like wait days at a time to see. And of course, they were the best team in the league in the mid '80s, so you were probably seeing a lot of wins when you would check that out. But and you said by the early 90s it started to get a little better. Do you remember when they actually started to show NHL games on TV in Germany?
Yeah, I think my parents got cable TV because in 1988, 1989. So I remember the series against the Bruins, 1990. So so I was able to see some of the action. And that was really probably one of my best Stanley Cup memories, if I could call that, because usually I would know through the newspaper and then the hockey yearbook and everything how the Oilers have done. But 1990, there was already more, let's say, attention to it, and for me it was, 1988 when Gretzky was traded to the Kings, that was really, I cried because the thing was because of the 1988 Olympic Games. One of my best friends at that time, his parents decided they wanted to go to Western Canada for during the summer vacation, and he was in Edmonton on the day Wayne was traded.
Oh wow!
So he felt so bad because he came home. He brought home all the merchandise. So I was loading him with a lot of dollars to bring T-shirts and caps and everything, and did a perfect job. But I will always remember I had breakfast, and then my mother came in. It was a newspaper and said, "Hey, Gretzky." That was global news at the time. And she was saying Gretzky is dealt to the Kings. And I started crying. I was 12 years old, and it nearly broke my heart. And then I had to take a decision. Okay, am I going to jump the Kings bandwagon and support Gretzky? Or do I stay and support the Oilers? And that took me like 5 minutes.
And you decided
because initially I blamed his wife for the trade. So I was not really, let's say, informed. I was also highly critical on Peter Pocklington. But it was devastating that day. But it was also, let's say, the 1990 Cup run was so great, and it was, when you see the even now the series and afterwards the celebration, and also that they gave Wayne a call and they were winning it for Wayne. I think it was fantastic. It was a fantastic achievement at that time, and I think it was one of my best Stanley Cup memories ever. That team winning it in 1990.
They weren't expected to win the Stanley Cup that year. You could argue that they were the favorites at least from 85 through 88. The first one, when they upset the Islanders, they were probably still the favorites in that series. But in 1990, this was a team that Marc Messier, led along with along with Bill Ranford playing incredible goaltending to end up winning the Conn Smythe Trophy as well. And just to go back to the Gretzky thing where you said you cried when he was traded, you weren't the only one. From
yeah, I guess
from everything that I've seen and read it and people I've talked to, that reaction was quite common at the time. I was born about 5 months after the trade.
Okay.
So I missed out on
Good
all
for you.
Yeah. I missed out on all the glory years. I was alive for the 1990 Cup, but I was very, very young, too young to know what was going on. So that's awesome that you were still able to basically, be following the team through most of the dynasty.
Yeah.
Other than the 84 Cup when you first became a fan of the team.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned you were a big Gretzky fan. He's obviously my hero too. I mean, this podcast is named the 99 Forever podcast after him. But who are some of your other favorite Oilers players of all time?
Yeah, a great question. And as you mentioned, I think in 1990, Mark Messier just put the Oilers on his shoulder and delivered unbelievable leadership with his team. And I really liked, I still really like Mark Messier, and I was so grateful that he stayed for a couple of years longer, and he brought this, let's say he saved this winning mentality within the team and was still able to give it another cup run then in 1990. That was, I really liked him. I mean, then also Ryan Smith, that's another ridiculous trade. So 2006 was Pronger. I mean, Pronger's a little bit different animal, but with Ryan Smith, it was also devastating, the trade. And I mean, most of my heroes, I go back to the 1980s. I mean, so many great players. So hard to let's say select one over Wayne. And I mean, nowadays, sometimes it feels kind of weird that I'm now 46 years old and I have a Conor Mcdavid shirt here and in my, let's say, man cave here.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels a little bit weird because those guys are so much younger.
Right.
But right now there's so much talent in the team with Conor and obviously with Leon. So I'm now cheering them up big time. No question about it. But heroes, it's let's say it's kind of it goes back to my childhood when I had really heroes, and Wayne Gretzky was everything to me, and I think it was great to have him at least a couple of years in a role for the Oilers Entertainment Group. I mean, he was there in 2019 during the season opening week, so it was also great to at least a little bit feel his aura. But Wayne Gretzky still is my boyhood hero. So.
Yeah, and we definitely are on the same page there. He was mine as well, and I've been in the same room as him one time. He came to my hometown of Saskatoon for an event back in 2010, and he was here with Gordie Howe, and was being interviewed by our Canadian Prime Minister on stage for about an hour and a half, and you just got to hear Wayne tell stories about. His career and times with Gordie, and it was awesome to just take that all in. And I was just 21 at the time, and I'd been following Gretzky for well over 10 years by that time after he had retired. So that was such a cool experience for me. And the only thing I wish I could have met him that night, but he was basically secluded to an area of people who had paid for a much more expensive table at that dinner than I was at. I mean, it was a huge auditorium type event. So I mean, I was pretty much near the back of the room, but just to be in his presence, hear those stories, and say I was at least in the same room as the great one. That was really cool.
Yeah. That's certainly true. Yeah, and he seems to be a really nice and humble guy, right? So
Oh yeah, he's extremely humble. I mean, despite being the greatest player of all time, he just will always compliment his teammates first and talk about how important those guys were to his success. And I see a lot of that in Conor McDavid as well. He's always hesitant to talk about himself. He doesn't like it. He likes to put the focus on the team. And let's just hope that McDavid's able to have some of the team success in Edmonton that Wayne enjoyed back in the 80s.
Yeah, that would be great.
I wanted to ask, when did you first visit Edmonton, and how many times have you been there overall?
I've been there only twice, I have to say. I was there for the first time in 2000 when I did a trip after I had graduated from university. So I took a month out and traveled through Canada, but that was in the summer. So I just managed to hop off the train. Because I was doing a train ride from Toronto to Vancouver and visiting several places then. So I just jumped off the train and went to Rexall Place just to see the building. And then finally in 2019 I then had the opportunity to come over and spend an entire week there for the season opener and then a second game, and that was really great. When I was 16, it was supposed that I would go over and for half a year. So that was planned together with my parents. But and that was also have mean that I would have been there from September to January. So I would have a good chance to go to some games. But then they canceled it because of financial reasons, because I was supposed to go to, I think, a private school. I think there are Catholic schools around there. And at the time, it was quite expensive. And then my parents said, okay, they canceled the trip on short notice. They sent me to the US instead. I was really frustrated, I have to say. Didn't spoke to them for a couple of days. But so the funny thing is that when I returned and when I came to Edmonton back in 2019, so I drove through the city and then I saw the name of the I saw the Catholic church. So I said, okay, this seemed to be kind of destiny, that then after more than almost 30 years, I come to Edmonton and having a good time, and then see the school name where I would have been then for half a year, but fortunately never materialized. But now I'm, let's say, easy again with my parents, so no worries here.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about your first game in Edmonton? Who was it against? Do you remember the score? Anyone who scored in that game? Was there any big moments?
The game was in 2019. It was a season opener against the Canucks, and the Oilers won 3-2, and Leon opened the scoring. So that was kind of nice. I mean, it was the season when the major change happened. So Holland came on board and Tippett. So everyone was kind of eager to know where we stand, and I think we came off of a good start. And also, the season opener was on a Wednesday, and then there was another home game which I attended that was on Saturday. We beat the Kings 6-5 in a wild game, and by that time I made some friends in Edmonton, so they were, let's say, we had nice seats and we had lots of beer. And at a certain time, was because Mike Smith was the starting goalie, and man, he screwed it up several times, big time, and let the Kings come back into the play. And I say, oh wow, okay, I have to drink less, otherwise I probably will not see the end of the evening. So, but it was a great experience just being in that building, being with other Oilers fans, and there was one guy who came over from from Manitoba, so he drove for 11 hours just to be at the game, and that was really nice. So it was very special to me. And I mean, sometimes I would love we would always have the, let's say, playoff atmosphere and at Rogers Place, because sometimes it can be a little bit quiet. And in Europe, usually there are some hardcore supporters who make a lot of noise. So that's a little bit different than in North America. But for me, it's just a privilege to go there, being able to see the Oilers live, and so that was really nice. And I would have planned to come back earlier, but because of the pandemic, it's I need to see when I have the next opportunity to come over. But I have a 11 years old daughter, and we have a deal with my wife. So whenever the Oilers would go on a decent cup run and go to a Stanley Cup final, then we would be allowed by my wife to come over. And we would probably say we have a 90-year-old Annie in Edmonton, which she would need to see it. So that's a story for the school then, to take my daughter off for a week or so. But we would definitely come over if the Oilers go deep in the playoffs.
Well, hopefully they'll be going on a deep playoff run this spring, so maybe we'll see in June sometime.
Yeah.
But I also remember about that game, the first one. That game in 2019 against the Canucks was McDavid's first game back from his knee injury as well.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And he scored a beautiful game-winning goal where he cut through the defense.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you must have heard the building be pretty loud, at least at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I almost forgot about it. And I mean the last game from the prior season when he got hurt at the meaningless game against the Flames, and that was really frightening. And I have to say, I have to take off my cap for Conor Mcdavid, what he achieved during the summer. I mean, his willingness to come back and putting all that work in, all the effort. So that's really, really top notch. And since then, knock on wood, he seems to be okay health wise, and so yeah. I mean, it's always my biggest fear that either Conor or Leon get injured, because still we are relying just from the statistics, we are relying big time on both of them, right? So let's cross fingers that they will be healthy going forward.
Absolutely. You know, they are such vital parts of this team. And, you know, Conor has had some injuries in his career, but other than the injury in his rookie year, he hasn't missed too much time as a result of being hurt. I mean, it was a devastating injury that he suffered at the end of the 2018-19 season when he crashed into the post in Calgary. Yeah. I was actually at that game.
Oh.
And if there's any silver lining to come out of it, it's that he was 6 months away from puck drop on the next season. So he had a full off season, and he never missed one game despite that horrible injury. So thank goodness for that. I also want to ask you about the NHL's Global Series in 2018, where the Oilers played an exhibition game in Germany against the Cologne Sharks. What was that experience like to watch the Oilers play a game in your home country? And, you know, I remember watching that game on TV, and just like you mentioned a minute ago, the atmosphere just was unbelievable. You could just feel it through the screen, how excited the fans were. Yeah. They didn't stop chanting and cheering the entire game. What was that like to be there?
It was a great experience. I mean, on the day they announced it, I told my wife there's no way we're going to miss that, because we just lived like a 25-minute drive from the Cologne arena away. So I said, okay, we will have a big day out, and so I bought some nice tickets. Bought an Oilers shirt for for my daughter. My wife is not so much in sports. Say, okay, you better save the money for an Oilers shirt for me and buy some decent tickets. So we did that. And the funny thing is, somehow I had trouble with getting the tickets delivered. So I was really nervous, and then I gave the Cologne Sharks, so that the team the Oilers playing that day, I gave the office of the Cologne Sharks and call them. They say, okay, if there are any problems, just drive by and pick up the tickets. So the funny thing was, right at the time I was going there, that was during lunch break when I was at work. So I drove there. And then there were people standing out there with Oilers shirts, and I say, "Okay, hey guys, what's happening?" And they say, "Yeah, the Oilers are having training inside. That there's, let's say, a small ice rink, which is non-public, close to the arena, where the Cologne Sharks have their head office." And then there was a security guy, and he was looking at me, and I was wearing kind of suit because I was coming from work, and say, "Yeah, I have an appointment with the Cologne Sharks." And then he let me in, and then I was just bumping into what is his name? The host of the Oilers.
Gene Principe?
No, not Gene Principe, Stauffer, Bob Stauffer. So I was bumping into Bob Stauffer, and then I picked up the tickets. And then when I came back, there was Milan Lukic at the time. There was Leon Draisaitl. There was Conor Mcdavid, and all the guys were there. And I was just standing there. And after 5 minutes, and the security guy approached me and said, "Yeah, I thought you have an appointment." Yeah, I have an appointment. And then I just left. So that was a nice experience. And then the actual day, I was so pumped up, and it was just a great experience, and I was really amazed by the sheer number of Oilers shirts around the arena. There were so many Germans with the shirts on, and because I was kind of thinking that I would be, let's say, one of the few Germans, but especially pre-Draisaitl, to cheer on the Oilers, and there were so many Germans. I was so proud, and we had a great time. Actually, we met some people from Edmonton, which I later then meet again in 2019, because then I was doing a tweet on that, and then a guy sent me a message to say, "Hey, I know you're from Cologne."
Oh, nice.
Then we met up for the LA Kings game, so that was really fun. And I mean, the fans in Germany, they can get really excited. So it was a nice atmosphere, and the Cologne Sharks gave the Oilers a hard time, and I was really nervous, because the game went to overtime, and I was just thinking, if the Cologne Sharks beat us here in overtime, I will need to listen to stories for another 10 years every time I wear my shirt or my Oilers cap in the supermarket. So thankfully,
you wanted to make sure the team won.
Yeah, so I was kind of relieved, even if it was just an exhibition game. So it was good experience, yeah.
And of course, there were some connections to the Oilers in that game too. I mean, Leon Draisaitl's dad was coaching the Sharks at that time, as well as former Oiler Ryan Jones was playing for Cologne at that time. So, there was some storylines there, as well as I wanted to ask you, that must have been just so cool to see your team play in your home country. But can you imagine if the Gretzky era Oilers had come to play a game there in, say, 1987 or 1988? How exciting that would have been for a young Axel.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, there was even a game without Gretzky. It was in 1990, and you wouldn't believe it. So,
I think that's right. I do think I remember hearing that they had played
in
some games in Europe in the early 90s.
There was also an exhibition game, 1990 in the summer after the Oilers won the cup on kind of surprise, right? And it was sponsored by a company called Epson. They do printers and things like that. And they were the main sponsor of the rivals of the Cologne Sharks, which is called Düsseldorf. So they are just like 30 miles up north from Cologne, and a team I personally support. And so my dad and I we got tickets for it, and I was not able to talk. I was 14 years old, and then I saw Messier on the ice and all the guys, and they were the defending Stanley Cup champions, and they managed to beat Düsseldorf. I think they lost to St. Louis big time because they went to Düsseldorf party district the night before, so they all had a hangover. But it was really fun. But my I think my father never saw me speechless, because I was just standing there and looking at all the Oilers players, and it was a really old-fashioned hockey ring, lot of standing area, right? And it was amazing. It was really amazing. A lot of people don't know that the Oilers were also there in the 1990s, but of course with 2018 was a different kind of game in front of 18,000 people in Cologne. That was awesome.
Yeah, I remember hearing that they had played, but I couldn't recall if it was in Sweden or Germany or where they had played games. But yeah. I think it might have even been on Stauffer's show where he was saying that this was going to be the Oilers' first game overseas in, close to 30
years. Yeah,
28 years. Yeah. So a big deal. And I'm so glad you got to see Mark Messier live. And also his brother Paul played professional hockey in Germany for several years, didn't he?
Yes, he played for a team called Mannheim, and I saw him several times then on local games. He was also a great player, but obviously not the caliber of Marc Messier. But so brings back a lot of memories for sure.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that with us, and let's dive into some current Oilers talk now. And I think, since we're on the subject, I think we have to start by talking about your fellow countryman, Leon Draisaitl, who scored his 50th goal and 100th point of the season against the Anaheim Ducks last weekend. He joined Wayne Gretzky, Yari Curry, and Glenn Anderson as the only players in franchise history with multiple 50-goal seasons. Draisaitl also became only the 7th European-born player in NHL history with 3 100-point seasons. Axel, how much have you just enjoyed watching a German superstar on the Edmonton Oilers over the past several seasons?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a joy, and it's also a privilege to see him. And I remember when he was drafted, I think that was back in 2014, so even before Conor was drafted. So, and I remembered, okay, here we go, right? So I was thrilled that the Oilers were drafting a German talent. And I think at that time there was some kind of debate. Okay, if I think he was like number 4, number 5 overall draft pick.
He was third.
Third. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
He was projected to go fourth. And he ended up getting picked third. And there was some debate there. Should the Oilers take Sam Reinhart? That's right. Oh, Sam Bennett actually. Reinhart went one pick before, so there was kind of that debate. Should it be Bennett or Draisaitl? And obviously, Draisaitl has proven to be the best player in the draft. So a wise decision by then GM Craig McTavish.
Yeah, and I also remember a lot of discussion after his entry contract, and then the new contract was $8.5 million. I mean, that's a bargain.
Now it is for sure.
It's a bargain. So it's just great how he developed, and seeing him do those things. I mean, he's a workhorse on the ice, and he's a team player. Doesn't show off, and he's just a nice guy. and the production rate is just unbelievable. And I mean, I was watching the game against the Kings for us it was Friday mornings, on Thursday night for you guys, and the last seconds he was taking the face off. He won the face off, and then they just calmed down things in the King's zone, and it was just amazing. And he worked so hard on the face off, and now he's every time there's a crucial face off, they send out Draisaitl, and I think that says a lot about him and his ability and also willingness to improve further, and also seeing him win the Hart Trophy. That was great. It's just a big joy watching him, and I'm pretty sure he will continue to produce at that rate. I have no doubts. I mean, it would be great to see him overtake Austin Matthews. It's a leading goal scorer, but overall, I think he's now at 102 points. That's a great achievement, and he's a great player.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, I always say how lucky we are to have Conor Mcdavid on the Oilers, but we're almost equally lucky to have Leon Draisaitl on the team. I mean, Draisaitl currently ranks second in the league in goals, third in points, second in power play goals, second in power play points, and he's tied for the league leading game-winning goals. And I think he's the best dual threat in the game today. If you look over the past 10 seasons, he's the only player in the NHL to put up 50 goals and 50 assists in a single season, and he's done it twice.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are other things he does aside from dominating offensively. He kills penalties. He takes face-offs. He's almost impossible to knock off the puck.
Yeah.
Axel, do you think Draisaitl's greatness is underappreciated outside of Edmonton because he plays on the same team as McDavid?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I wouldn't say that Conor McDavid is getting all the glory. I don't think that's happening. And for me, also the MVP vote when Draisaitl was awarded the Hart shows that there is some, let's see, at least some appreciation by knowledgeable people. I would say that. But of course, it's not that easy to. I mean, the North American sports market is so diverse. There are so many, let's say, different sports, different, let's say, heroes, and of course, I think from a marketing point of view, it's probably a little bit easier to market Conor McDavid than Leon Draisaitl. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that looking at Draisaitl's personality, I don't think it really bothered him. I mean, he's not a, let's say, a glory hunter in any way. So I think he's fine with it, and he's not frustrated. I don't think he will at one day ask for a big trade out of Edmonton because he say, okay, I'm always in the shadow of Conor McDavid. That's not his personality. So
you don't see that in hockey as much as well. That's more of a basketball type thing where you see the egos come out that they want to be the star.
Yeah,
I mean, Draisaitl would be the number one center on almost any team in the NHL if he wasn't playing for the Oilers. And that's similar to when Mark Messier was playing for the Oilers back in the 80s. He would have been the number one center on virtually every team. But on this team where you play with Wayne Gretzky, you're the second line center. And that just speaks to how deep the Oilers are down the middle. And then when you add in someone like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at third line center and a young up-and-comer like Ryan McLeod on the fourth line, the Oilers have the deepest forward group in the league with those four down the middle. And when you're able to have two future Hall of Famers in McDavid and Draisaitl leading the charge, you know, you're in a pretty good spot.
That's for sure. I mean the future looks bright. I mean, there was a lot of, let's say, lots of restructuring in the post-Chiarelli era, right? So managing the cap space, it's a tough thing to do. probably we will spend some times on that later
And
in our conversation. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, I think Draisaitl gets let's say in Edmonton the appreciation, and also I think if the Oilers would go on a deeper cup run, I think they will also be on a bigger stage outside of Edmonton. It's just that they didn't have the, let's say, the coverage yet. I mean, they would obviously had it if they would have gone to the conference final then in 2017. I'm sure of that. But yeah, I think the time will come. I'm pretty sure. I'm positive about that.
And let's not forget that Draisaitl was actually leading the league in points for most of the season. Conor McDavid obviously had a great start to the season, and he's pulled back into the lead recently. But there was, from about November until March, Draisaitl was a few points ahead of Conor consistently throughout the year.
Yeah.
And then I had a feeling that Conor might catch him at some point, but still, that just shows how dominant of a player Leon Draisaitl is, that he's able to push the best player in the world night after night and not just settle for being the second best player of the team. He's trying to be the best player as well. And I think that when you have two elite talents like that, it's just a matter of time before this team goes on a deep playoff run like we talked about.
Yeah. I mean, there's still work to do, but I think also with changing the head coach, that was a bold move, but it's for me it was the right move, and it was about time to do this because I think with Tippett we would have made it into the playoff, but probably just would catch a wild card spot. And that would have immediately mean trouble in playing against the Avalanche. And so I rather prefer a nice divisional setup with the Kings instead of going with the big teams from the Central Division, right?
Yeah, and the Oilers have shown they can beat the Kings, winning the season series 3-1 this year. And the only unfortunate thing that came out of that 6-1 win over the Ducks on Sunday was that Draisaitl crashed hard into the boards behind the net and appeared to have injured his knee. And he ended up missing the following game against the San Jose Sharks before returning on Thursday against the Los Angeles Kings. However, he really wasn't at 100% that game. You could see that he was kind of skating gingerly, and it looked like he didn't want to put too much pressure on that one leg. Do you think the Oilers should give Draisaitl a few extra days off to let him get back to full health, or is he too valuable to keep out of the lineup at this time of year?
That's a very interesting question, right? So what how do you go about it, right? Because I think nobody would, let's say, go after the team if we would lost tonight to the Avalanche, right? They are the best team in the league, and if you probably would give Leon a little bit of a break, it would be this game. But then I think we still have some time until Tuesday night against the Wild, and I think I think from his personality, I would say he will try everything to be with the team tonight, and then it's a decision of the doctors and the recommendation of the doctors what to do. Probably he would, if he needs a scan, it has already been done, and then it's a question how let's say severe is the
Well,
injury, and how do you go about it, right? So tough question.
And I know the Oilers have an excellent medical staff, and I don't think it would be any type of serious injury, or else they wouldn't have let him play against the Kings the other night. From what I can sort of gather from listening to Jay Woodcroft in his press interview, it's that it seems like it's a deep bruise on the leg. So it's something that's probably giving him some real discomfort, but not something that he's going to, make it worse by playing anyway. But he's just going to play. He's going to have to play through a bit of pain, discomfort. Pain. And, I thought he had a real shot to score 60 goals this year, the way he was going there. But maybe this will affect him for the next few games. I'd still love to see him push his totals as high as he can, and I think he could score 55. But if they had to sit him down for an extra game, I think it's fine. The Oilers have had a really great hot streak lately, so they've banked a bunch of points, and this is a game that's going to be tough to win anyway tonight. And if they had to give him a rest, I think that it would be understandable for them to give him the night off.
Yeah. And I mean, the game against San Jose was a little bit dull, a little bit. Somehow we managed to get the points, But I was looking at the game for breakfast, and I was kind of worried because we didn't look great. Somehow that we scored. Short-handed, which I personally really like. I love short-handed goals. When the Oilers score, and so I was fired up, and then just seeing that unbelievable pass and from Smith to Conor McDavid, that was just. Wow, I was freaking out.
Now, see, you were talking earlier about the game in 2019 when Smith made a couple blunders with the puck that resulted in the Kings scoring. But while that can happen, he's also capable of making that breakaway type pass to Connor. Yeah. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad a little bit there, and it doesn't happen too often that it ends up in the back of the net. The back of our own net, I should say. But every once in a while, you get a highlight reel goal like that. And I loved the celebration after where Smith skated up the ice to give him a big hug. That's just going to be one of the moments that we look back on this season. That amazing pass that just hit Connor perfectly on the tape when he skated in and went backhand to win it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I almost spilled the coffee. So and, my daughter was terrified. Me screaming on the TV. So.
Yeah. So do you? I meant to ask this earlier, but do you watch every Oilers game live, or do you record it and watch it later?
Yeah, it depends. Really, it depends. I mean, I also have a daytime job, right? So
exactly.
So and especially I work in the industry, and we have during the pandemic, and also now with the Ukraine war going on, we have a lot of challenges work-wise, and so I have to manage that smartly. So especially when the Oilers playing the West Coast. That would be games that start 4:30 in the morning for me, and that's fine to watch. So usually they don't start 4:30 sharp. So there's another like 10 or 15 minutes delay on that, and
pre-game ceremonies and anthems,
and everything, and then by 5 o'clock I'm fully wired in. And then I just go to work. So that's fine with me. Sometimes there are matinee games, which I know the most of you guys don't like, because having a beer at 11 o'clock in the morning, that could be a tough thing. For us European guys, of course, it's great because we have beer then in the evening, which is nice. But yeah, I record all the games and then I just do fast forward to get an impression of how the Oilers are doing. And of course, sometimes there are games whenever I see the score, I don't want to watch.
If you saw a big loss, I mean, that's probably not going to be one that you're going to want to sit through. But did you actually get to watch Leon's 50th live though?
Yeah. That was nice, and I watched the almost all parts of the Anaheim game. and that was nice, and also seeing him celebrate in that kind of way. I mean, he's not the most, let's say, outgoing guy on the ice, but you really see what it meant to him, and also to the team, and so that was really great.
What a shot too from low in the circle. I mean, there aren't many players in the league who could score on a one-timer from there.
Yeah,
especially when he's battling through like a sore knee to pull that shot off. It was just incredible. But anyway, I want to talk about the other half of Edmonton's dynamic duo now, Conor McDavid. And just like he seems to do every year down the stretch drive, McDavid has elevated his game to another level over the past month. He has 13 goals and 29 points during his 15-game point streak, which is also the second longest scoring streak of his career.
Yeah.
McDavid also has 7 goals in his last 6 games and reached a new career high in goals with 42 in a 3-2 win over the Kings Thursday. And perhaps most impressively, he's leading the league in scoring again with 108 points in 71 games and is looking to join Gordie Howe and Wayne Gretzky as the only players in NHL history with 4 scoring titles by age 25. Axel, do you think McDavid will win the Hart Memorial Trophy as most valuable player this season?
Yeah, I was thinking about that prior to our podcast today, and for me the question is really who else than Conor McDavid, and I know I'm bleeding copper and blue.
Well, we're all biased. We're all Oilers fans, but every fan has some level of bias towards their own team, right?
But I mean, Huberdeau is doing a great job in Florida, obviously. I mean, Austin Matthews, I mean, he's always hyped up by Toronto media. Mm-hmm. So if Toronto is the let's say the center of the universe, he would probably win it every year. But yeah, I mean, you could have a debate on if there are other players who do more penalty killing or whatever. But I mean, just look at the stats. Look at who has the most points, and for me, it's clear that he's the future. He's a Hart Trophy winner in 2022, and also. Sometimes people made a case that because the Oilers didn't reach the playoffs, but this year I think we are certainly to reach the playoffs. So they cannot really be a debate other than I don't know if Huberdeau or I mean that the Panthers are having big comeback wins like every other night, and he scores a dozen of goals, but I don't see that happening. So I think. Our Hart Trophy winner 2022 is Conor McDavid. So
exactly, and you know, yes, Huberdeau is having a career year, and he's only 6 points behind McDavid. You got to give him credit for that. That's fantastic. Yeah. Austin Matthews is at 56 goals now. There's a very good chance he'll hit 60. It's the first time that's going to have happened in a decade. Also very impressive.
Yeah,
but. Realistically, McDavid should win the Hart Trophy every year for a decade. You know, he's a once-in-a-generation superstar and far and away the most offensive, dominant player in the league since he entered the NHL in 2015-16. You know, and after becoming only the second unanimous MVP in league history last year, I think he should absolutely be the front runner to win it again for a third time this season. You know, he recently, recorded his 5th 100-point season and 6th consecutive 60-assist season, which is the second longest streak in NHL history behind only Wayne Gretzky. He's on pace for a career-high 123 points, and he could still hit 50 goals this year. I believe he will.
Yeah.
And if he continues to rack up points at this rate for the rest of the season, I think he'll be the obvious choice to take home the Hart Trophy. I don't know how he could get 125 or close to 130 points, say, if he's able to, you know, even take his game up another notch yet and not give him the MVP award after all that.
Yeah, so Yeah, I'm really bullish about it. I mean, he have done it in the past, or he was voted in the past. So yeah, and really in a cap space era, and with this competitive environment in the NHL to produce like him, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable what he's doing with the puck, and how is he's still able to develop further, and yes, he has some years ahead of him. So we're just privileged to watch him, and I hope we will have him for a very long time in Edmonton.
Absolutely. And despite how many legends there are in Oilers history, you think of how many greats came through this organization back in the 1980s. McDavid is already fifth all-time in Oilers scoring. He passed Paul Coffey a couple weeks ago for fifth. He's only 18 points away from 700 in his career. And I think with 10 games left, he could absolutely pick up another 18 points and get to 700 points. That's more than enough time for him. So to think 25 years old and already 700 points, like, the future is still so bright for this guy. I don't think he's hit his peak yet.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, last season was incredible, but I think he can. He didn't get a full 82 game season because of the pandemic. I think that we're going to see a year before his career's done where I think he gets close to 150 points.
Yeah, I would love to see that. But the 150 is really a big landmark, right? So it's a big milestone. But if somebody's able to do that, it's Conor McDavid, and yeah, we like I said, we are privileged to watch him. We are privileged to have him on the team. I will never forget the envelope. It was so much fun. I was just freaking out. I was really freaking out.
We're almost coming up on the 7th anniversary of that day, April 18th, 2015, which was also the same day that Wayne Gretzky retired in 1999.
Yeah.
When that envelope opened up and there was a golden Oilers card inside, and Bill Daly announced, "We have a winner." I mean, that's just
wow. Yeah.
It's kind of sad for the state of the team that was the most exciting thing that happened all season for me, watching the Oilers in 2014-15.
Yeah.
But after going through the decade of darkness, to get that sort of reward for our pain and suffering, I would do it all over again just to get Connor McDavid. It was worth it. And we talked about how great Leon Draisaitl is as well. The Oilers got the best player in the draft 2 years in a row, getting Draisaitl in 2014 and McDavid in 2015.
Yeah.
They're now the best duo in the league. If you look at most points by teammates over the last 6 years, they are well ahead of even the second best duo during that time. So, we're extremely lucky to watch these guys night after night, and let's just hope that we're going to see some playoff success here, because that's the one thing that these guys haven't quite experienced yet. You did mention that they had a good shot in 2017 and were one game away from the conference final, but these guys are ready to win. It's their time now. They've done so much individually up to this point. I mean, awards for both guys, 100-point seasons, 50-goal seasons, like the individual statistics and accolades are there, but they're ready for some team success. And I think that this is they're gearing up now at the way the team's playing. They're in a good position to enjoy some playoff success this year.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get your thoughts now on the Oilers' excellent stretch of play as of late. So with their road win over the Kings on Thursday, the Oilers extended their winning streak to 6 games. It was also their first 6-game winning streak since December of 2015. And if they can beat the league-leading Colorado Avalanche tonight, the Oilers will set a new franchise record for longest home winning streak at 10 games. Axel, what have you seen from this group recently that is allowing them to have success?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all those things, and I think there was let's say, a key decision then by getting Jay Woodcroft taking over as a head coach. And I mean, Rogers' place beforehand was not really a fortress, and that's not in any kind of criticism to the fans or whatever. It's just the way we were playing, or the team was playing under Tippett, and now we have built a fortress, and teams are, let's say, not afraid probably, but yeah, I mean, probably some weaker teams are afraid to come here.
It's a harder building to play in,
but it's a harder building, right? And you have to give Jake Woodcroft some credit about it. And I also realized that we are now awake at the first face-off in the first period, right? Because under Tippett, I mean, they were sometimes sleeping, and they needed a wake-up call, and it was sometimes I would just have loved to skip the first period, because we were not in the game. And I think there is now a level of urgency right from the start, and that's great to watch. I mean, beside the Calgary game, usually when the Oilers scored first, they won. And
only one time this year have they lost.
Yeah, only one time this year. That was the one-off in Calgary. But also, I have to say here, I was very frustrated. But let's say, after that game, we only saw wins. And that probably says something about the head coach, but also the team, right? So they probably some weeks prior to that, or under Tippett, we would have crumbled, and we had more losses and things like that. But they got their act together, and they produce. So I'm so happy to see that change. I think Tippett was important coming in 2019 along with Kenny Holland, to give some stability, to give some structure in, and let's say putting some pieces together, which was fine. And then they had like two opportunities with the Plains against the Blackhawks, and also last year then with the Jets. He had the opportunity, but I think especially the way we lost to the Jets, I think something broke during summer, and it was never repaired. And it was just, the time was over for Tippett. And now having Woodcroft stepping in with a decent record down in Bakersfield, and he's a new type of head coach. I think he's very good in approaching younger players and the younger generation, and you could see that in the faces of the players. They were kind of relieved when Woodcroft took over, and they were not, let's say, directly criticizing Tippett, but you could read between the lines that they were really happy that the change was happening. And I would love to have that earlier, but Kenny Holland sometimes take a little bit longer to. I think he never fired a head coach during the season, right? So that was new to him, even after spending his entire life in the NHL. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy with Woodcroft and the work he's getting in, and how the team looks right now. And he's not changing all the lines like every 5 minutes if something is not working out. Sometimes I was so upset with tips. I wasn't able to see, okay, who's playing with him on which line, and and now we take timeouts in difficult situations. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy. So.
And, honestly, it wasn't even just the young players. You hear guys like Devin Shore or Derek Ryan talk, and they both say how much more they feel a part of the team when they're able to play more than 5 minutes a night.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't want to criticize Dave Tippett, because I do think he did a lot of good things while he was here. He really improved the penalty kill.
Yeah.
Like you said, he brought some stability back to the organization. At a very fragile time when they were, changing over management groups and there was rumors of frustration from McDavid, and just and I don't know if those are warranted or not, but obviously, he's a very competitive guy and wants to win. So with the team missing the playoffs 2 years in a row, something had to change. And I think that Dave Tippett, he was a good coach for a short amount of time, but he had really taken this group as far as they could go, and they needed a new voice. They needed someone to come in and help right the ship. And Jay Woodcroft, to his credit, he's injected some life back into this team. I love that he always, he almost talks like a player talks, like he's talking about the team after every game. He doesn't always love to single out individuals. He says, we played a really good team game. It was it was a great team win. The way he always puts the emphasis on the group. I like that. And I think that it resonates through the dressing room when you do that. And like you said, they were falling behind in games far too often. I think one of the biggest things for this team is they've had better starts. I mean, they gave up the first goal of the game more than any other team in the league through the first 4 months of the season. But on their current 12-2-1 run, the Oilers have opened the scoring in 10 of those 15 games. And the team that scores first in the NHL wins about 2/3 of the time. So it's also important for the Oilers to get used to playing with the lead more often and not having to chase the game night after night like they were. And yes, there were a lot of come from behind wins earlier in the season, but you don't want to have to go into the third period down a goal or two and have to have this heroic comeback night after night, even if that is really exciting. Sometimes it's nice to go into the final frame with a lead and just kind of hold it until the final buzzer. And, we didn't see that nearly enough. I also think that they've had a lot better attention to detail, especially in the defensive zone lately. You see the way that they're breaking the puck out. There's less turnovers, fewer turnovers, I should say. Just the way that they're able to, move the puck up ice. I think having a guy like Brett Kulak, another puck mover on the back end, has helped as well. And the goaltending. I mean, the Oilers, we know as Oiler fans how we feel about the current goaltending tandem. There's not as much faith in the duo of Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen based on the last two playoffs. But during the regular season, they've, especially Mikko this year, he's been better than average for the most part. And Mike Smith is on an absolute tear right now, going 6-0-1, I believe, in his last 7 starts. So maybe he's heating up at the right time after, suffering a couple injuries earlier this year that kept him out of the lineup. But if the Oilers can even get average goaltending from Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, I think that the Oilers will be able to score enough goals to win most games. They don't need, elite, stellar goaltending night after night like the Rangers might get from Shesterkin, or that the Lightning are going to get from Vasilevsky. I mean, as much as you'd love to have a player like that on the team, the Oilers just simply don't right now. So as long as they can give the Oilers even league average goaltending, I believe that they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, we could have an own podcast on the goalie situation. I would say we could easily spend an hour debating, and I mean, just my 5 cents on that here. I was a little bit frustrated when Holland gave this 2-year contract to Mike Smith. I always differentiate between the person and the player, right? So all in all, it's about business, and I mean, just from a personal let's say view, I really like Mike Smith, and I also really like Mikko Koskinen, right? So it's nothing personal, but it was a big gamble.
They could bury him in the minors next year if they had to as well. And I mean, at the same time, you don't want to hinder the development of their young goalies. Like they have Konovalov down there. The Oilers just signed a college kid, Ryan Fanti, who will be looking for playing time in goal for the Condors next year as well. So I don't know how they're going to work this situation out, but the one thing I do know is that Stuart Skinner is going to be on the team next year. he'll no longer be waiver exempt, so he would have to pass through waivers to get sent down. So he will be an Oiler, at least one of their two goaltenders. It's just a matter of who the other one will be. And I don't think Mikko, despite how good Mikko Koskinen's been, I don't see him coming back. So it's going to be Skinner and someone new. Yeah. But we have to hope that Koskinen and Smith can get the job done, at least for this year, and help this team take that next step.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
So the last thing I want to talk to you about is playoff predictions. I'm just going to simply ask you, how far do you think the Oilers will go in the playoffs this season?
Yeah, so usually I'm a very optimistic person, and
as am I.
And usually I'm really hyped up whenever we put an X behind our team names in the standings. I will immediately decorate the house. so it's all country all over the place, to the pleasure of my neighbors. No, but seriously, I think it's very hard to predict. So if I'm rational, then I would say, last year, I think we probably get into the second place in our division, and I think the Kings will be in third place, so we will have a series against the Kings. And what I would love to see is that we don't underestimate the Kings, because last year we were looking at the Jets, and I think we dominated them during the regular season in the North Division. And think, hey, will be not easy, but 4-2 Oilers, let's go, and then we were swept. So I don't want that to happen, and I don't think it will happen. I think it will be more like the series against the Sharks in 2017, which was hard fought, but ultimately the better team went through, the Oilers. And I think that could also happen this year, so that we will have a tough series against the Kings, Todd McNally. So it will be great. It will be just exciting. And then hopefully we get through. And then, I tweeted you today, good memories of 1999. We will have a Battle of Alberta playoff, and on the one hand side, I will love it, every second of it, but also I'm already nervous just thinking about it. And I mean, I'm not even close to Alberta at the moment, but it will be mind-wrecking. It will be.
Yes, that's what we've been waiting for, right? Fans, I think from both sides, Calgary and Edmonton, have both been waiting, over 30 years for another playoff matchup. And if that does happen, that would be the first time in the social media age. I think it would. I don't know if Twitter could handle it.
We will just have to pull down the 5G network, or put some extra capacity in. Historically, we have the edge over them. I mean, it's clear. We won 4 times. They won once in 1986, which was a real upset. But I won today. I couldn't resist, and I was watching the 1991 series, at least the highlights, and there's a nice Twitter account who's doing Oilers vintage videos in there. I really love it. Brings back a lot of memories, and also brings back a lot of or shows how this rivalry was, right? And I remember, the goalie fight a couple of years ago when Jack Michael said, "This is the Battle of Alberta we have been waiting for 3 decades." You see, I'm already excited. So, and nobody's able to predict if we bump into the Flames for a divisional final. Nobody can really say, okay, who's going to win that. It will be a nail biter, and it will be. I will be so nervous, and I probably have to take holidays or just work on mountain time. But I don't care, to be honest. And then Yeah, it's a coin flip, right? It's really a coin flip. I mean, you have to get credit to the Flames. I mean, we all wrote them off, and now they have a bounce back season, and a lot of depends on their goalie. So they have Markstrom.
That's going to be the could be the difference maker in the series too, right?
Yeah, and so let's see, and then everything is whoever advanced. I mean, probably tired legs, and then you have to see, okay, who's going through the Central Division, and
probably the Avalanche, who the Oilers
probably
are playing tonight.
the Avalanche, right? And but also Minnesota looks good, and so and you never know, some of the upsets we have seen in the last couple of years. Everything is possible, and nobody would have predicted that the Canadians go on a cup run last year.
Yeah,
but I think with fans in the building, it will be different. So I think it will be a mind-blowing Stanley Cup series. So
yeah, once you get into
playoffs,
yeah, sorry. I mean, once you get into the playoffs, like anything can happen. I mean, we saw in 2006 how the Edmonton Oilers went all the way to the Stanley Cup final as the 8th seed. So it's not impossible, but having a hot goalie is so important to success in the playoffs, and that's why Smith and Koskinen are really going to have to step up and give this team a fighting chance. But I like what you said. I mean, the Oilers, as much as they would love to play the Flames in the playoffs, they can't overlook the Kings. You know, they have to get by those guys first, and then if you end up meeting Calgary in the second round, now you're in for a really tough series, because the Flames have been one of the top teams in the league this year. Although they're about 6 points behind, they only have one less loss. You know, Calgary does have some more overtime losses, and if the Oilers avoided that ugly 2-11-2 stretch they had in the middle of the season, even if they win one or two extra games, it shows how much closer they would be right now to competing for a division title. It's almost impossible to catch them at this point, but I don't think that there's that big of a difference between the two teams. The Oilers actually are a better offensive team. They score a little bit more, but it's that defensive system that Sutter coaches, as well as having an outstanding goaltender, that is the reason why Calgary is atop the division right now. So we'll see when those teams eventually meet, but the Oilers will definitely also be looking for revenge for how the last meeting between the clubs went.
Yeah, definitely. And also if Calgary is playing Nashville, it's also not a walk in the park. So also, I mean, I remember some playoff series where the Flames look great over the entire season, and then they got swept, I think, by Colorado a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and so you never know. I mean, the playoffs are a different animal, and I just hope we can give it a chance. And I mean, playoff hockey in Edmonton is just unbelievable, right? So if you watch the videos from 2006, and I was getting up late at night, early in the morning, back in those days, and it's just incredible, right? So the entire city is behind the team, and that's so amazing. That brings so much joy. Even 2017 was kind of like that, and hopefully we all have a big blast during May, and hopefully a little bit of June.
Definitely. And you mentioned earlier that historically the Oilers arena, wherever they've played, whether it be Rexall Place or Rogers Place, it isn't an overly loud arena. But come playoff time, it's deafening in there. And it's almost like the fans save their energy for the most important time of the season. And unfortunately, there haven't been as many trips to the playoffs over the last 15 years as we would have liked. But now that they're almost certainly heading back to the playoffs for a third straight season, this is the time when you're going to see that building really explode, because the last two playoff runs, let's remember, there were no fans. So to have fans back at an Oilers playoff game for the first time since 2017 they're going to be ready to go, and I'm hoping to attend a playoff game. I've never had the opportunity to watch the Oilers play a playoff game live, so this will hopefully be the first chance that I'll have next month.
I cross my finger for you.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed, Eric, that you are having a playoff game.
Well, it would have been 2 years ago if not for the pandemic. I was living in Toronto in 2017, so that was my first time as an adult that the Oilers had made the playoffs, because I was only 17 in 2006. So I would have went in 2017, but I wasn't in the province at the time. And then, of course, now that the pandemic is hopefully getting closer to an end, and that fans will be filling out the arena, I'll have a chance to be one of them for either game 1 or 2 against the Kings, as the Oilers look to lock down home ice advantage, and a win tonight against the Avalanche would go a long way to doing that.
Yeah, hopefully. So let's see. I'm eager to watch it. So will be a 4 a.m. face-off here in Germany, but it's a Sunday, so I can go to bed after it, but probably I will have so much adrenaline rushing through the body that I will be awake and then having breakfast with the family, hopefully with a big smile on it. But this game tonight will not define the season for sure. I'm really looking forward for the Las Vegas game in 1 week from now. So that's a 10 p.m. face-off here in Germany. So let's see if I can have some friends over, or meet up with some friends to watch the game. And I think that will be one of the decisive games coming up now. And I mean, things are looking good statistical wise, but I'm eagerly waiting for an X behind our name in the standings, and then we can look forward for some great playoff hockey.
I am too, my friend. Well, anyway, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Even with the time difference, making the time to do this, I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Hopefully, you'll be back on the show again sometime.
Thank you so much, Eric. And great show, and all the best for you, and talk soon.
I appreciate that. All right. So for Axel, Shaefer, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.